Hi there, I'm Zoot Java. Today is September 24th, 2021, and after more than 1,000 days in captivity, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, two Canadians detained in China since 2018, are on their way home. This was just announced by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The news for this actually comes on the same day that the Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou became free to leave Canada after getting a deal struck with prosecutors in the United States. So, Prime Minister Trudeau said that the Canadian citizens, known as the two Michaels, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, are finally on their way back to Canada after being in China, detained for almost 3 years. He told a news conference on Parliament Hill that they have become known in Canada around the world as the two Michaels, and that they were on a plane leaving China as he was giving this conference, and he would be accompanied by the Canadian ambassador, who is Dominic Barton. Now, this was hours after Meng Wanzhou walked freely out of a Supreme Court in British Columbia, where a judge agreed to discharge her from an order that withdrew a extradition request against her from the United States. For her, it took less than an hour on Friday to bring it all to an end. Meng Wanzhou and the U.S. prosecutors struck a deal that saw Huawei executive freed, and the charges against her basically just dropped. And this stopped a prosecution that had plunged Canada-China relations into a bit of a pain in the butt that had been sort of keeping people on edge. Now, Meng Wanzhou had a hearing in the United States federal court in New York on Friday, and she pled not guilty to a whole bunch of fraud charges, which led to her being arrested in Vancouver on an extradition request for the United States in the first place. She agreed to a statement of facts, apparently 4 pages long, said that she made untrue statements to a major bank, wrongly denying that Huawei controlled a company whose work in Iran violated American sanctions. That's why this was such a big deal. Statements basically were at the heart of the fraud allegations, and so the prosecution had brought up the prospect of freedom also for Kovrig and Spavor, detained by China, in what a lot of people saw as basically one of these, we're going to keep them if you're going to keep ours type of thing. And they didn't mention anything about this in New York or even the Vancouver court sessions, but this deferred prosecution agreement basically means that the U.S. is freeing Meng Wanzhou, who was also on bail in Vancouver until a judge lifted it later on, and they will take that request away, and Canada extraditing her, saying the prosecutor, who was goes by the name of David Kessler, and if she just complies with the terms of the agreement, charges are all dropped entirely on December 1st, 2022, he said. So she appeared in a video link, which I noticed, I saw earlier, from Vancouver, and she talked through a translator saying she'd agreed to everything and thanked everyone, that she said in English, to the judge after the hearing ended. So Basically, this was something that started in 2018 with her arrest, because the U.S. State Department wanted her, the Justice Department, and they charged her with fraud and allegedly deceiving a bank about the company's dealings in Iran. That's what this was all about. For those who couldn't figure it out, they just knew that the Americans wanted her, but they didn't really know what for. And the arrest of her really got under the skin of the Chinese authorities and the government. They're the government over there in China, who still have accused Canada of kowtowing to American governments. You know, we've got an agreement. Like, you know, you'd think that no, you wouldn't think that they'd understand that, because everything just has to go their way no matter what. But they just said that this was characterized as a political ploy, and while this extradition process was being made into a mess, they decided to arrest two of our citizens, and that was the businessman Michael Spavor and the ex-diplomat Michael Kovrig. So this, you know, they had leveled vague espionage charges, and the men were basically kept, I can't say for sure, but it sounds almost like kept away from anybody else. They weren't allowed visits except a couple by some Canadian diplomats, and very limited legal help was offered to them. So the strange thing is, well, not really the strange thing, the obvious thing is that the Chinese Meng Wanzhou was granted bail. That allowed her to live in a Vancouver mansion that she owns, and she just had to wear an ankle bracelet and some security officers to make sure she didn't try and get out of the country. Michael Spavor had a trial in March, I believe. Of course, it was a closed hearing, and he got convicted last month and sentenced to 11 years in prison. Michael Kovrig also had a trial in March, but they didn't announce the verdict of his trial just yet. It was increased sentencing with drug charges for another Canadian, Robert Schellenberg, from 15 years to death at a pretty quick appeal hearing. So they appealed that death sentence. That was rejected in August, day before Michael Spavor's verdict was announced. So, you know, this is not looking very good. China's looking like they're doing us a favor, but not doing us a favor at the same time. It's like, we'll do you this favor, but no, we're going to keep a tight rein on you. So there's reason to celebrate and reason to still be, you know, annoyed at the Chinese government. So, you know, with all this going on, at least these two guys are finally coming home, when, to be quite honest with you, there was an awful lot of times that they could have been, this is now my opinion, they could have been brought home. The Prime Minister should simply have stepped in and said to China, when China was demanding all that PPE at the beginning of the COVID problem, and he sent them all kinds of masks and things that we needed. But here, take it, China, no problem. He allowed the Chinese military to train here in our country. I believe even up to and including pilots. So, you know, you could have just said, you want any of this stuff? You better cough up our citizens. This was not a good thing to do. Like, he could have just said, sorry, we have this agreement with the United States. We've had this agreement with the United States for years, and they've got these charges against her. We have to hand her over. That's the way it goes. And if you want to have anything from us, then you better give us our citizens back. Our citizens should have been first and foremost in his mind, not helping them out with training their military here on our soil. I'm sorry. I'm glad that they're back. I'm thankful to see Justin Trudeau getting up there and telling everyone that we can kind of relax from this. This has been something that's, they don't talk about it every day because it's been going on for 3 years, but it's always in the back of my mind that these guys are there doing, getting stuck with this. It's also the reason why I would never go to one of these countries. Ever. You can't trust them. You just can't trust them. And apparently, you really can't trust our own country to help you out when you're in a jam. It took an awful long time here, and it seems like the only reason that we're getting the two Michaels back is because the United States have agreed to drop the charges with Meng Wanzhou. So, anyways, now it's time for my extremely bad joke. And I just noticed that, we're getting a COVID passport here. It just started up here in Toronto, and or I guess all around Ontario. And I just hope that, it can work out and that we don't wind up with all our businesses being shut down. Because if that happens, it really sucks for men. Because let's face it, the men are losing $1 for every 79 cents that a woman loses. No, huh? Anyhow, YouTube doesn't like me very much. I will explain that at another time. And if you are watching this on YouTube, I will have a pinned comment below at 2 other alternate sites that you can go to follow my content. And until later, I want you to have a Java on Zoot.